We're going to talk about calculating transportation costs for an athletic program, and the two sports that we have picked are men's basketball and women's basketball here at Ozark High School. The transportation director here at Ozark said our cost for transportation to our away events is figured by the mile. The cost is 72 cents per mile for the bus, the fuel, and the maintenance required. Plus, the driver gets an additional $13 per hour. So anytime that driver pulls onto the lot at the bus barn, the clock is running and their time runs until they get back from that event and they pull back onto the bus barn or the transportation lot, and that's when their time ends. For someone like myself who is a coach that has their CDL and they want to drive, there's coaching time taking out of that bus trip. That was decided upon by a committee several years ago, and they felt like the coach is getting paid to coach, so therefore they would have to take a stipend or coaching stipend out of that, and they just pay us a flat rate of $39 or a 3-hour minimum. So $13 an hour, $13 an hour, $13 an hour, that's $39. And no matter what the trip that we take, if it's 10 miles to Nixa or 30 miles to Branson, we're going to make at least $39 as a coach because we have our CDL and we drive our trips. So the $39 minimum applies for all close trips. Now, I know this gets kind of confusing, but for somebody or for a trip, let's say, for instance, in Springdale, Arkansas, it's about 150 miles away, so it would be 300 miles round trip. Well, that's going to be more than a 3-hour minimum, so they don't pay us the $13 an hour like a regular bus driver would get. So the round trip mileage obviously is going to be 300 miles. You divide that by 55 miles an hour, and like I said, this is the committee that came up with this because they're figuring just travel time, on a bus, starting, stopping, 55 miles an hour is about what you're going to travel. So take 300 miles, divide it by 55 miles an hour, and that trip would come out and pay me $50.45 for driving that trip to Springdale, Arkansas. So I hope that makes sense. I know that's kind of confusing, but like I said, that's years ago. They felt like those coaches that did provide a CDL, which saved the school drivers, because so many schools are short for drivers and hurting for drivers, and it really helps out the Ozark school system if the coaches have a CDL and they can drive those trips. Plus, it also saves them quite a bit of money because, if we pulled off the lot at 2:30 in the afternoon and we didn't get home till 11:30, well, that in itself right there is 9 hours. Well, you times that, times 13, that would be about $117 trip for a driver, as to where a coach like myself is only going to make $50.45. So it rewards us coaches a little bit for having our CDL, but it also saves the school district money. So how the school district, on my calculating my transportation request or my cost, you take that 72 cents a mile. So if it was a 50-mile round trip to Branson, you would take 72 cents a mile. That's what it would cost to operate the bus, and then times that by 50, the round trip miles to Branson and back. So it would cost $36 just in fuel for the bus and for maintenance. Okay, and then you would add up, what a driver would cost you. So like I said, depending on what type of game it was, obviously this is basketball, so you figure, they're going to leave school somewhere around 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and they probably won't get home till 10 o'clock, 10:30. So right there, you're going to have 5 hours of driving time for a regular driver times 13. It's going to be, I think $65 is what a regular bus driver would make. So anyway, that's kind of the figures. You add those two costs together, and you're going to come up with, around $88, somewhere in there, total cost for that trip. At looking at my sheet, we had a basketball coach that he chose to drive the majority of all the girls' basketball trips, so it saved the girls' basketball program a lot of money. Their transportation costs were a lot less, and they really even took more trips and took some further trips than the boys' basketball program did, but the boys' basketball program had to hire a driver for every one of those trips. So I hope that wasn't too confusing. A regular bus driver gets $13 an hour from the time they pick up the bus at the bus barn to when they bring it back and park it at the bus barn. It's just a flat $13 an hour, as to where a coach, it's a little more tricky and a little bit different. So I hope that kind of explains the transportation costs at Ozark High School.